I trust you.
Okay, we're good to go.
All right, everyone, welcome to this, our first session of Out of Bounds Astrology. This is astrology for the outcast. So this is astrology for people that don't easily belong to cookie cutter categories. Fernanda and I, Alejo, we're both Latin Americans, but we have lived and studied astrology in Europe for a long, long time. So we have one foot on the old world and another one on the new one. And we bring together the tradition of the Northern Hemisphere with the exuberance and passion of the South. Yet we feel we don't fully belong to any side of the equator. We are in-betweeners. We are between the generation of great astrologers like Liz Green or Howard Asportas, and then the new generation beyond the millennial astrologers who will change probably and reshape our craft. So we like to think we're too old to be young, but we're too young to be old also. We're both candidates for the MA in Cultural Astronomy and Astrology at the University of Wales, but we haven't finished it yet, so we're not fully academics yet. So we're kind of in a liminal space. It's a place that gives us freedom, but also discipline, so we can see things from a different perspective. We like to think we're out of bounds. We bring equality to astrology for the outcasts, the ones who don't easily fit in. So if you feel like you don't belong, perhaps this is your tribe. We guarantee you will not get bored, or you will not feel judged or feel missed out. And we hope we're going to give you some good time. Astrology, out of bounds astrology is astrology for the outcast. We are the out of bounders, and we're trying to explore as many perspectives astrology can offer with joy, excitement, laughter, and we're hoping to take astrological learning to another level. And that's why we're very thankful that you are walking this path with us. And this is our first event that we're doing, and it's called the 5 Weirdest Astrological Stuff of 2022 that you haven't heard about yet.
Great. Yes. So am I coming now? So one of the things that comes to my mind always when I'm gonna start a talk like this is why this talk? So why are we doing this talk? So there's a lot of astrologers talking about 2022, which is quite natural. I mean, there's a new year and what is there, in store for all of us. And so we thought we could contribute as well with, some of our ideas. Now, this idea of coming up with this project together and what Alejo was just saying of, being in-betweeners, not easily belonging and fitting into any categories was what kind of gave us the fuel to come up with the 5 weirdest astrological stuff of 2022. So rather than speaking about Saturn-Uranus square or Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, which are very important aspects, definitely very important transits, and we should be thinking about it as well, we thought that we should contribute with something else, with something a little bit outside the box, something a little bit different that probably are not really being talked about, and that would kind of line up with our project, with our idea of bringing different perspectives to the table. But that's not to say that the other perspectives are less important, or there's nothing to do with that. It's more like another thing I love to say when I'm giving a talk is this is an invitation. So this is an invitation to look through another window. So it's not really, this is not the absolute truth. This is not the one and only. This is not the only 5 things, and so on. So this is an invitation to look through another perspective, to see, these different little aspects that we thought could be interesting to, to think about regarding 2022. Now, another thing that I wanted to say with this slide there is the weirdest. So what we were meaning about the weirdest is that they're not going to be the, official aspects that people are talking about necessarily. So we're not saying weirdest in the sense of something that's, is a new planet that's going to be discovered in 2022. So it's not weirdest in that sense, but more in the, outside the box, different than the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction kind of weirdest. Also, with that slide on there as well, one of the things, because we thought, okay, we need to do a forecast about 2022, we can't wait too long, and Mercury is going to go retrograde. So what do we do? and so a lot of the, the things that we ended up seeing as, these different things, these 5, little things that we're going to mention to you, have something to do with retrogrades. And we thought, the weird as well, and looking through another perspective, not only because we are the outsiders, the in-betweeners, but also because Mercury is retrograde right now. So we thought one way that we could, give our offerings to Hermes right now is to see things differently, which is one of the ways that we can honor, this retrograde cycle. So, I think there's someone that's unmuted.
Yes.
I'm seeing here. Okay, I just muting. Nice.
Great, I couldn't see you.
So, okay.
Talking about Hermes, we're gonna make you shut up because we have
exactly. And then we're talking about Mercury retrograde, and there it is. Something disruptive just happens. So anyway, so what we're going to be talking has a lot to do with that, and it has a lot to do with cycles. And this is one of the topics that's sort of weaving all of these 5 different things that we'll talk about as well. And one of the things that I love about astrology is that it's cycles within cycles within cycles. And there's so many different ways that we can look into that, and we can get insight into, So let's move on to the first slide, so I don't spend too much time on the first one. So this is another mini disclaimer. I am very mutable, and I love to do disclaimers. And this is a little disclaimer on I love that I read this quote from Patrick Curry these days, and he's, talking about the definition of astronomy and the definition of the word astrology. So astrology is defined as the language of the stars, and astronomy is defined as the measurement of the stars. So this is my little way of giving a disclaimer that I won't be talking about the mathematical side of these cycles. So if you're interested, if you have a very mathematical, rational mind that really, is curious about, but why do, these cycles happen? Then, probably I'm not going to be answering this tonight. We'll be thinking, the invitation is to be thinking about these cycles from the astrological language of the stars perspective. So we're going to be thinking symbolically, which is, where I'm more interested particularly. And because I'm, talking about these topics, then it will come through my window. Remember, we'll come through my perspective there. So we'll be looking into these cycles in a more symbolic way. So before we move on to the first topic, again, a little word on retrogradation. We mentioned that Mercury is retrograde right now, and that, there's a lot of retrogradation that will be going on with these 5 different topics that we picked. And so we thought it would be good to think a little bit about, retrogradation. So there are a few meanings when I was looking and I was brainstorming on sure, we straight away think about something going backwards, right? And I don't know what the difference, of expertise in astrology are there amongst you. And if you really, need clarification, please write on the chat box and we can, clarify some things. But, it's a kind of a common knowledge that a retrograde planet looks like it's going backwards. So there's this idea of opposite direction from its ordinary movement. Now, I know that in traditional astrology, or in some sectors of astrology, this is this common idea that this is not good because the planet isn't behaving as it should be. So it's doing something strange. Now, because we are the out-of-bounders and the in-betweeners, there's always something different that we can do with these different ways of moving. So it doesn't have to be something bad and something, difficult necessarily. And I actually think that the idea of astrology being cycles within cycles within cycles, the most potent thing that we can do with astrology is to align ourselves with it. I mean, you're not going to try to, harvest something in the winter. You're not going to try to plant seeds when it's winter and really cold and dark outside. So it's kind of like that. And I think the retrogrades, and this idea of the movement going backwards has something to offer as well. So let's put the next one there, Alejo. So to revert to a less developed state. Now, this is another definition that I found, in a website when I was looking into retrogrades. And we can think, to revert to a less developed state, that's kind of negative. But what if it's an illness? What if it's something that we actually want to revert the development? So think about retrograde cycles as a period that you can actually rethink and decrease on certain habits or certain things or certain, people in your life that you're not enjoying as much, certain habits, whatever it might be. So this could be positive as well. Maybe we're doing too much of something. So to underdevelop that could be great. retrogradation or retrograde is also a term used by geology or geologists, and it has to do with the change minerals through decreasing pressure or temperature. Now, I thought this is an interesting way of thinking creatively as well, because we can think about retrograde periods as a way of decreasing pressure and temperature as well, because I personally find when I was going through big, long-lasting transits, Pluto transitioning my moon, whatever it was, during the retrograde phases, there was a lot less pressure. So the first hit of a Pluto to my moon was a lot of crises, a lot of things going on, taking action, destroying the structures of my life, blah, blah, blah. But when it was coming backwards, there was a lot less pressure. There was a lot less temperature. And I could really rethink about where I was going with that. I could really relook into what was going on in the transformations. I could really reassess that. So I think that's also interesting to see, from that geological perspective. So again, this idea of declining and regressing, and it doesn't have to be something negative. It can be something quite necessary that will do us really well, So to keep that in mind, yeah, go on.
Yeah, I would like to say that the reason why we're making such an emphasis on the meaning of retrogradation is that we find it's kind of the key to understand this 2022 year, this year that's we're starting. So that's why we want to be very clear on what could retrogradation mean.
Yeah.
Like it's the underlying subject in everything. In the 5 things we're going to see, it's kind of the underlying thing that is happening.
Yeah, yes. Exactly. So there's a lot of retrogradation within that. So here we go, the first topic. So the first one that here we go, brace yourself. So the first topic that we decided to talk about is Mercury retrograde in the elements. So let's move on to the next one. So what do we mean by that? So Mercury obviously also has a cycle. Astrology is all about cycles within the cycles, moon, 28-day cycle, etc., etc. So within this cycle, Mercury retrogrades around 3 times a year. There are some years that will retrograde 4 times, but usually it's 3 times a year. So I just said every now and then it retrogrades 4 times. But within these 3 times a year, there is a kind of an elemental pattern there. When I was trying to see something interesting to talk about, I realized that Mercury, and I was preparing since 2000. So I was looking Mercury, the retrogradations of Mercury from 2000 up to where we are right now, to 2022. And I realized that every year there's a kind of an elemental pattern there. So 2020, we had Mercury going retrograde in the water signs, and there was a little shift. One of the months, one of the 3 times that Mercury was shifting from water to air. And then 2021, Mercury went retrograde in air signs. So it was a whole, the 3 months, the 3 times that we had, the three weeks of Mercury going retrograde was in the element of air. And now what is happening in 2022 then? And how can we brainstorm meaning based on that? So, Mercury will be retrograde and is already retrograde from January 14th to February the 4th. And it will be 10 Aquarius, 24 Capricorn. Then we got May 10th, June 3rd, where Mercury is going to be 4 to 26 Taurus. And then September 10th, October 2nd, Mercury again will go retrograde and it will go 8 Libra to 24 Virgo. And the last one, December 29th, January 18th. So it's 4 times this year because it's very, very end of December there. So we can see that mostly Mercury goes retrograde 3 times, but sometimes this is overlapping between years and it doesn't happen every year. There's a kind of a gap when that happens, but it is happening in 2022. Now, is anything that you notice from that? And, you can reply on the chat box or you can talk about it at the end of the talk as well. But one of the things that caught my attention is that 2022, the 3 times that we're going to have Mercury retrograde, we have a transition from air to earth. So 2021, Mercury went retrograde in air signs. And what I thought was interesting was that 2020, we had a conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius. So Saturn, the big cycles of Saturn and Jupiter entered the element air. And then right after, in 2021, we had Mercury going retrograde in air as well, which is an interesting synchronicity. Now, 2022, we're having this transition between air and earth. Now, up to December, when it's going to be just in earth, it will be already moved on to Capricorn and to earth. So let's go to the next to the next slide. So here's some of the key ideas, that I was thinking. Obviously, Mercury is about ideas, it's about communication, it's about our thinking process. There are a lot of other things that we can think about when we think about the archetype of, of Mercury. But I want to really concentrate on that because I'm coming from a very humanistic psychological perspective. So I love to think about the individual. So we're going from air to earth. And for me, one of the key things that comes to my mind is bringing ideas to fruition. So last year we had an emphasis in air, a lot of ideas popping up. We're still obviously going through that Jupiter, Saturn, bigger cycle, sociological cycle in the air and thinking about education, etc. But now, with this Mercury, popping from air to earth, perhaps during these retrogradations, there's like key moments that we saw on the previous slide, October, whenever, now until February, etc. We will do well if we think about how can we apply our ideas? How can we make our ideas, air element, into earth, into something that's got form, that's tangible, that's practical, that's, achievable out there, rather than just explore concepts. And then obviously we need to think about these retrogradations within the context of the larger planets as well, which I just mentioned, the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, for example. So the furthest the planet, the longer the transit, the bigger the transformations, obviously. I mean, Mercury, it is about how we're thinking and what we're thinking in that moment. But, there's some spiritual teachings there. It says whatever we put our awareness, that's what we're going to increase in our lives. So whatever you're thinking about, that's what you're going to be really bringing into your life and inviting into your life. So with this idea of the context of the larger planets, we want you to keep in mind the 24th degree of Capricorn, which is 29th of December 2022. That's the degree that Mercury is going to turn retrograde. It will be stationing at 24 degrees Capricorn, which is a very relevant degree, so it seems, for this year as well. Now, the 24th degree of Capricorn in Sabian symbols, which I am very Mercurial myself, and I love to see things from as many perspectives as possible, just to get some food for thought. And the 24th degree of Capricorn in Sabian symbol is on your Oriental rug dealer in a store filled with precious ornamental rugs. Now, Sabian symbols are always like a little, enigma. And it's always interesting to think what they could be possibly meaning. But I do enjoy thinking creatively within. And for me, an Oriental rug dealer in a store filled with precious ornamental rugs, the keywords there, rugs and precious ornamental rugs. I mean, for me, this is talking about values. And so bringing ideas to fruition that really resonates with your values. And I think that 24th, degree of Capricorn, which will pop up again in other of the topics that we're choosing, is also connected to values. What are your true values? Now, people that work with life coaches, and I follow a few very good life coaches, and one of the basic things, a good life, a life worth living is a life that's aligned with your core values. And for you to know your core values, you need to look within, you need to think about it, you need to really, do some soul searching and etc. And I think that the 24 Capricorn there that will be very relevant, is kind of, there's something about that. There's something about that that's being brought to the, forefront. So, so I think this is the first topic there. Yeah, you want to say something, Alejo?
Yes, I want to say that also. I was thinking now the rug dealer with precious ornamental rugs, it's somebody that has to do with his ideas, like the earthing, and also like a practical, real thing, like he also needs to ground his ideas. And also I wanted to share, because we were discussing before that you checked, I think it was in 2009 that this happened also, right? Fernanda?
Yeah. The exact pattern, yes, is 2009. There is a repetition of this change of elements, from air to earth, and retrograding 4 times as well in 2009. That seems to be a pattern. The elemental pattern seems to happen every 13 years with Mercury retrograde. Yes, it's true. Yeah.
So it could be good to also look at what was happening in 2009 with, each one of you, so that you can ground this to your own lives. What was happening in 2009 that you had to review and that you had to reassess in order to bring your ideas into reality, in order to bring your ideas into the real world? I see in the chat some people are saying this may be talking about creativity. Then Svetlana was saying something very nice, that Mercury is the messenger of the gods, so he can move from air to earth with quite speed.
Totally.
And yeah, it's nice thoughts. And
I
Patri
love
is saying that her midheaven is at 24 degrees. So let's see.
Amazing.
What are these values that you find, Patri?
And then again as well, midheaven, you know, think about midheaven. It's your social role. What are you meant to be doing out there in the world, you know? This is really being activated there. This is really being called, you know, to be rethought, to, you know, and obviously Pluto is there as well, you know. Then again, it's like, oh yeah, Mercury is going to go retrograde there, but Pluto's been there for a while, you know, and it'll definitely be talking about something very deep, about changing that, and that sense of identity, that sense of social role there has been going on, you know, for the last couple of years anyway. So it's definitely, your approach is still going to be very much linked to that this year. So yeah, let's move on to the next one then.
Okay, yes.
So here we come to the second topic, and I'll be the one presenting this one as well. So there's a chunk of planets going retrogrades in September. Now, this is also something that we thought was interesting. Retrogrades yet again, like we said in the beginning, there's quite a lot of retrogradations. And there seems to, you know, it wasn't something that was happening always. Again, like I said, this is the language of the stars. This is not the measurement of the stars. So I can't really tell exactly astronomically why this has been going on. But the point is that there's being a build-up of planets going retrograde, you know, together at the second half of the year. So August 2017, we had 4 big planets retro. And then next year, 2018, we had 6 planets retrograde. Then there was a transition between August and September 2019 with 5 and 4 planets going retro. Again, 2020, obviously 2020, which was a huge year. It had loads of other things as well, not only that. But it had quite a few planets going retrograde as well there around that time. September 2021, 5 planets retro, plus Mercury at the end of it. By 2024, Jupiter will leave this bundle of planets. So we won't have all of these planets. So before we think, this is happening because it's always going to happen, because it always happens. No, by 2024, Jupiter will leave that. And there's something about the star sign that they're traveling, and, you know, whatever it is, their motion there. My mind is really not great with the rational side of things.
Yeah, because they're kind of all together going through the same kind of area of the sky. So when they go retrograde, they all go retrograde together. Of course, they have different speeds, so it's not exactly at the same time, and it changes a little bit every year. But because as long as they're all staying there in the same 3 last signs of the zodiac, it's going to happen that everything happens at the same time.
There we go. Exactly. Mine is a little bit more rational. So 2022 September, we're going to have Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and Mercury going retrograde. So that is a month, you know. So there's a little question there. What to do with this information? Because we want to ground this, you know, 5 things that we're talking about into something that you can do with it, you know. So what to do with this information? Well, great time to take a pause, isn't it? Great time to take a step back, to, you know, not rush anything, not be so, why am I not doing it? Why is it not going forward? Why is it so slow? You know, when we're trying to push forward and things just don't go, you know, the speed that we think they should be going. So I think September 2022, take that month to do a sabbatical if you can, you know, take that month to take it easy, to do things slower, to do things at different pace, to be more reflective, to do journaling, to write down your dreams, to do whatever it is that works for you in terms of revisiting and exploring your inner life. I mean, I think retrogrades and retrogradation in general is a great time for inner life work, inner life. Go inwards. Remember the video that Alejo put there and the first slides there about retrogradation, they all walking backwards, and, you know, best time for you to just go inwards, look within, do some soul searching, find out your own answers, you know, connect to your intuition, to your, you know, to your inner wisdom, etc. So September 2022 will be the month for you to do that. because we have all of these planets going retrograde all together. So it'll be a very powerful, strong energy, general energy of, stepping back, going, inwards and slowing down the process, is slowing down the growth and rethinking if you really want to grow in that direction or if you should be turning into another direction, and so on and so forth. So that's, the second topic, which is quite simple, quite straightforward, but nevertheless quite important. And then the third topic, short stay of Jupiter in Pisces, is Alejo who's going to be presenting.
It's my turn. Okay, so a lot of people are talking about Jupiter in Pisces, Jupiter in Pisces. Everybody's super excited. Jupiter is in Pisces. If you don't know much astrology, maybe you don't know this, but if you know a little bit, you probably already know that Jupiter is the ruler of Pisces. So the idea is that every sign is a house, and every house has a ruler, somebody who takes care of the affairs of that house. So supposedly when a planet goes into his house, he's happy, he's comfortable. So it's a great, it's like when you get home, you're comfortable, you can do what you want, you feel at ease. And this is the idea of Jupiter in Pisces. Everybody's excited because it's been in Capricorn, which he was supposedly not very happy. Then he went into Aquarius, and now he's finally home, and it's like, everybody's happy. Jupiter is in Pisces, Jupiter is in Pisces. Jupiter is called the greater benefic, is the planet of luck. If you look at the sky, it's one of the brightest planets. It's not the brightest one, but it's quite bright. So you can see it clearly, and it's beautiful to see it. And it's like every time I see it, I feel like I'm blessed with good luck. But to be honest with you, he's going to be in Pisces for a very short time. Like, he's moving really quickly in his time in Pisces, because actually in May, on the 10th of May, he's going into Aries, and he's going to stay there until the 28th of October, because as he's retrograding, he's going to go in, he's going to go back, he's going to stay there for almost the whole, not almost the whole year, but maybe half a year. He's going to stay there. And then on the 27th of December, he's going back into Aries. And so on the 28th of October, he's going to go to Pisces. And basically for 1.5 months, he's going to be there. And then he's going to go back to Aries. So he's not in Pisces during the whole year. So if you're a Pisces and you were like, oh, I'm going to be so lucky during this whole year, well, you might be lucky, but you should take advantage of the first months, I should say. No, but seriously, if you want to know, I mean, what's the idea of Jupiter? Jupiter is about expansion, and it's about meaning. Fernanda was talking about going inwards to find what's meaningful for you. And Jupiter is about meaning, not only expansion. So if we go like to a very literal level, to a very kind of basic predictive level of Jupiter, we would say, okay, look at the area of your chart where you have Pisces, and before May, it may be a good opportunity to start new things over that area. And then look at the area of your chart where you have Aries, and maybe that area of your chart, if you have Jupiter there, if you do this between the 10th of May and 28th of October, maybe it could be a good time to reflect on what you would like to expand on that area. It's going to be retrograde for quite a while, so maybe not start things so quickly until December, but maybe it's a good time to reflect on what's meaningful for you in that area of your chart, that house of your chart where you have Aries. But more importantly, I think what this means is that, you know, Jupiter in Pisces is like, he's at home and he's happy, but Pisces is a sign of subtleties. It's a sign that doesn't bring so many certainties. It's a sign that has to do with the emotions, with the inner world, with imagination. So we think that mostly this upcoming of Jupiter in Pisces, instead of just seeing it, oh, I'm going to be very lucky if I'm a Pisces or if I have Pisces rising, maybe a good opportunity to delve into what's meaningful for you, what gives you a sense of meaning, of a spiritual meaning perhaps, or a sense of kind of emotional expansion or something like that. Instead of trying to think only like in mundane physical results, I'm going to be lucky if I start a project now. That's the first thing we wanted to say. Then the other thing, we were wondering how weird this is, because this is the astrology of the weird things that are happening in 2022. So we were like, maybe this happens every time that Jupiter goes into Pisces. So maybe you know, maybe some of you don't know, Jupiter takes 12 years to go around the zodiac. So every 12 years, he goes back to the same place where he was. So we said, okay, let's look what happened 12 years ago to see if the same thing happened. And what we found is that on the 18th of January, 2022, Jupiter went into Pisces. But then on the 6th of June, 2022, he went back into Aries. And then on the 9th of September, 2010, I'm saying 2022, sorry. 18th of January, 2010, Jupiter went into Pisces. 6th of June, 2010, Jupiter went into Aries. And then 9th September, 2010, he went back into Pisces. So basically, a similar thing happened. Jupiter went into Pisces in January, but by June, he had left. He went into Aries. And he stayed not as many months as now in 2022, but he stayed like 3 months in Aries. And then he went back to Pisces. So it's a similar pattern maybe that we have now. Then he went back to Aries. Now my question is, do you remember what was happening in 2010? And I'm giving you a few ideas, a little time to think. Really? And I'm not saying this is what's happening now, but I found like a powerful connection. Okay, they're saying I bought a flat, changing my life completely. Yes, this is good. You need to put it down to your life. Now, globally speaking, I found a very interesting coincidence we found, which is that we were fighting the flu. And in 2010, they decided that this pandemic was over. It took 2 years. It was not as big as the one we're dealing with now, but I found it quite interesting. We said, oh, wow, this is what, a similar thing was happening. Now, I think it's more important and more interesting to do what you are doing, to go back to your life. Okay, but what was happening in my life? What was I dealing? How was I looking for meaning in my life? Because in these years, when Jupiter was in Pisces and Aries, it was retrograding a lot through these signs. So it was doing a similar pattern that it's doing now. So this year might have a similar meaning for you than this 2010 and 2011. Now, because we were worried, like maybe this is not weird, maybe this happens all the time, we said, okay, let's look back 12 years again. And we found out that in 1998, Jupiter went into Pisces and he didn't change signs. He stayed for the whole year into Pisces. So this is something weird. This is something that doesn't happen every year. But do you remember what happened in 1998 and 1999? And I mean globally, and it's not a pandemic, of course, thank God. We were all watching Titanic, which is, I think, an amazing symbol of Jupiter in Pisces. And it's also a warning for everybody who says like, Jupiter in Pisces is going to be blissful, everything is going to go great. Well, I don't know, because Pisces is about floating also. And Jupiter also brings things too much. And I'm not saying this in a mundane, threatening way. I'm saying this in a personal way. Like, okay, Jupiter may expand a lot of things, but sometimes he overpromises. So I think it's good that he's doing this whole thing about retrograding and going to Aries and going back, because it's giving us time to reflect on how to handle this this energy. Oh, I'm reading communism fell in Romania in December 1989. Wow, I didn't know. Wow. But most importantly, as we were saying before, try to see what was happening in your life, and maybe you can make a connection. And we think that you're going to make a stronger connection with 2010 and 11 and today, because it's the same pattern. In 1998, it didn't do the same pattern. So there's going to be a connection probably, but maybe it's not so clear than in the other time. Okay, and that gets us to our fourth subject or stuff of today, of this 2022, which is the nodes are going to be eating up all the planets. And when I have to explain this, I need to tell you a little story so that it's clear. And if you know me a bit, you know that I love to explain things through stories. So this story comes from India, basically. And the idea, before I start, I would like to say that the nodes are associating with the dragon. So we have two nodes, the north node and the south node. One is the head of the dragon, the other is the tail of the dragon. And I personally associate dragons with snakes because they are kind of the same nature. Now in India, where this story I'm going to tell you is coming from, Shiva, which is one of the most important gods there, is associated with the snakes. So the snake may not have the same symbolic flavor that it has for you if you come like me from a Christian background where snake is evil. Krishna is also protected by a snake in India, so it really does not have the same meaning. Now, the story that I'm going to tell you about is there was this king, which is Indra. He was a deva, so he was kind of one of the gods, and he was a king of one of the, if you can call it like that, one of the heavens of the Indian mythology. And he ran into a sage called Durvasa. Durvasa is one of the manifestations of Shiva, which is one of the greatest gods. So Indra, this king, which is a divine being, ran into Durvasa, which is a manifestation of one of the greater gods. And Durvasa gives him a special garland. And of course, I mean, imagine you're riding your elephant, and you run into this sage, and he gives you the garland, and you take the garland, you say thank you, and you want to show that you are proud that you got the garland. So this Indra, there are different versions, but let's say he put it on the elephant, on the neck of the elephant. Some versions he put it on the track of the elephant. This garland was made of flowers, so it was very, very sweet. So a lot of bees started coming up to the garland to taste the garland. So the elephant started going crazy. He started shaking, shaking, and shaking. The garland fell to the floor, and suddenly Sage Durvasa looks at the elephant and looks at the present he had given to Indra is on the floor, and the elephant is stepping on it and it's breaking it apart. So Durvasa gets super angry. Remember, he's a manifestation of one of the most important, powerful gods, and he curses all of the devas, all of these divine beings, to lose their power. So in this Vedic pantheon, let's call it, we have the devas, which are like divine good energies, and you have the asuras, which are like demons. So the devas lose their power, so the asuras start conquering the world. So the devas are super worried, they don't know what to do, and they go to another of the greatest gods, which is Vishnu. It's like the super powerful almighty god, and they ask him what to do. And Vishnu says, you need to go and drink Amrita, which is like a nectar for immortality. And the devas say, okay, where are we going to find this nectar? And the god Vishnu tells them, it's hidden in the ocean of milk. So I guess if there's a whole ocean of milk in India, I guess milk is very important in their culture, I don't know, but they have to go to the ocean of milk to get this Amrita. And of course, because they cannot do it on themselves, they need to make an alliance with the Asuras. They need to make an alliance with the demons. So what they do, and this is the picture here, this is the mountain that they kind of stick in the ocean of milk, and they get this snake to go around the mountain. And one of them are gonna pull from the tail, and the Asuras are gonna pull from the tail, and the Devas are gonna pull from the head. And from pulling and pulling, they're going to churn the ocean of milk, like when you make butter. And by churning the ocean of milk, they're gonna get this Amrita, which is hidden behind, which is hidden beneath. What happens is that, of course, the Asuras complain that they got the tail, so they move, so they have to change spots. And the Asuras, the demons, get the head. The serpent gets very, very angry, and she starts throwing up a lot of venom, and she's screaming and throwing up venom. The Asuras get a bit intoxicated, and the Devas get really, really scared. So Shiva, which is one of his greatest gods, drinks the poison to save the Devas. And after churning the milk, a lot of things start coming up from this ocean. All of these little things that you see here are all of the gifts that start coming up from this ocean. And one of the gifts that comes up is Lakshmi, which on my screen it's very small, but I think it's this goddess here. And she's the goddess of beauty and wealth. It's kind of a Venus goddess. And we're going to be talking about Venus later. That's why I'm mentioning this. By churning the milk, Lakshmi comes up, and also the Amrita, the nectar. Of course, the Devas went running to get the Amrita. So Vishnu disguises himself as a woman, Mohini, and she kind of seduces them so that they get distracted and they forget that they wanted the nectar. So then Vishnu starts giving the nectar to all of the Devas. But one of the demons realizes, so he disguises himself as a deva, as a divine, positive, good being, and he goes in line to get the nectar. Now he was in line between the sun and the moon. So by the time that he got to do the nectar, the light of the sun and the light of the moon shine over his disguise, and they realize that it's a demon. But at that moment, he was already drinking the nectar. So Vishnu, in a moment of speed, throws a disc and cuts the demon's head. And the head, now it's called Rahu, which is the north node, and the tail gets to called Ketu, which is the south node. And that's how the nodes are given birth. So then this Rahu and Ketu, because they're angry with the sun and the moon, because they were the ones who showed his true nature, they eat the sun and the moon, and that happens when we have an eclipse. But this year, they're going to eat all of the planets. And this also happened last year, if I remember correctly. So they eat all of the planets, not just the sun and moon. And before we go into the dates when this is happening, what I like to think is symbolically what this story means. First of all, to get the Amriti, we need to churn the milk. So there's some effort we need to do. Second, to get the gifts that this year promises you, you will have to face your darker side, let's say. So the devas are the positive divine spirits, and the asuras are your demons. But they need to make an alliance in order to get this drink that will give them the immortality. Thirdly, you're not only going to get that drink, you're going to get a lot of gifts. And one of those gifts is Venus, and it's going to be one of the themes we're going to be talking about. And yes, I would say also when they are churning the milk, this snake spits venom. So you're going to have to deal with your own venom, with your own demons, in order to get these gifts that the sky is promising you. So here's the chart for the 14th of December. Here are the two nodes, as you can see. And you see all of the planets are eaten. They have been swallowed by the nodes. On the 17th of December, the moon is going out. So she's breaking this pattern. The moon moves very quickly. For those who are just starting astrology, the moon moves very quickly. That's why she's the one that's capable of breaking this up. 31st of December, not 33rd, 31st, no, 31st of December to 13th of January, the same thing happens. You see the moon goes back in. So again, they are eaten up. And then the moon leaves on the 13th of January. We have the same pattern from 27th of January to 9th of February. The moon goes in, and here the moon is about to go out, 9th of February. Then 23rd of February, moon goes in until 8th of March, moon goes out. 22nd of March, the same thing, the moon is in. 4th of April, the moon goes out. And I think this is the last one. The moon goes in here, and the one who breaks this configuration is Mercury, Hermes, our beloved, who on the 24th of April leaves and escapes this eating of the nodes. So what does it mean? Basically, I don't know if you have noticed it, but for me, I've been super tired since the year started. And it's probably because for 4 months and a half, you're going to have all of these planets chunking up here. So it's like if you think of your chart, you're going to have you're having a lot of transits, a lot of conjunctions, let's say, and a lot of transits through the houses on half of your chart for almost half of the year, maybe not half of the year, but 4 months and a half, which is a lot. So it means that these areas of your life are going to be very, very intensified. So if you think about it like this, it's like all of these planets are here, and the moon is trying to balance the thing every 15 days, but it's quite hard. So what I think each one of you should do is to check where you have Taurus and Scorpio, because that's where the nodes are. So you know those houses are going to be affected during this year for sure. And then you can see which houses all of the other planets are falling. So you know that those houses, that area of the zodiac, that area of your chart is going to be really, really intensified during the first 4.5 months. And it could give you a lot of gifts, as we were saying. If you face the difficulties of that area, like the Devas and the Asuras did, you may get gifts and you may find Lakshmi, which is Venus. It promises you wealth and happiness and sweetness in life. What else is happening during this period? So this is from 14th December of last year, 24th April of this year. Well, during this period, Venus and Mars are going to go retrograde. So this is talking probably about your relationships. We're going to go into that in a minute. And then another thing is you're going to have a lot of planets in Capricorn and Aquarius. So perhaps those two areas, wherever houses you have Capricorn and Aquarius, are going to be even more impactful and even more important during these 4.5 months, so that you can develop, if you maybe by knowing this, you can pay attention to what's happening in those houses, and you can get these gifts that Vishnu is promising us if we turn the ocean of milk. Fernanda, would you like to add something about this?
Nice. No, that's very interesting. And I think it really has that feeling, isn't it, of what we were saying in the beginning, that this year seems to, from this perspective that we're inviting you all to look through, that there is a lot of like rethinking, relooking, going inwards. And I think if we're looking even into the global context, post-pandemic, post-2020, which has been this almost like this portal that we all like were thrown through it. And now we're kind of, we're still a bit disorientated, and, a lot of people say there's no normal to go back to anymore. And I kind of feel that as well. Obviously our discussion isn't really necessarily mundane here right now, but we're all going to have to churn this milk, and we're all going to have to do this work in order to find what the new normal is going to be, and how we're going to create this. And so knowing these cycles, is really interesting. I find, obviously I'm biased because I'm an astrologer, and all of you as well in some way, but I think it can be tremendously empowering. Yeah. So yes, very, very interesting. Yeah.
Great. So we get to the fifth element, which is Venus, of course, relationships and love, and what we call the damned 25-ish degree.
Yeah, it's 25-ish because because there's a lot going on. We noticed that there was a lot going on there within the 25th degree of the zodiac in general, and we're gonna see that. So again, I love that, cycles within cycles. And so we're looking a little bit into 2021 there, just to give us a little bit of a context into this fifth new last topic that we'll be talking about today. So Pluto and Venus already met at 25 degrees in January 2021. So January early 2020, so about a year ago, Venus made a conjunction to Pluto at 25 degrees Capricorn. Now, remember when we talked about Mercury and the elements, I think, and we talked about the Sabian symbols, and we talked about the 24th degree of Capricorn. Well, here we are again, talking about the 24th, 25th degree of Capricorn, and someone has got midheaven at 24 degrees, so there we go. So then again, there was a conjunction of Venus and Pluto on the 11th of December 2021, so that was very recent. So let's go move on. Next one, Venus went retrograde on the 19th of December at 26 degrees Capricorn. Now it was really close to Pluto, because Pluto is the 25th, 25 degrees Capricorn. So Venus was just traveling with Pluto for most of December 2021 now, and is stationing to go retrograde. Now, I think it's really interesting, because if you think about astrology as signatures of the moment and etc. Well, the signature of the moment of Venus going retrograde is pretty much connected and tied in together with Pluto. So there's something quite powerful of this retrogradation, cycle of Venus right now. So what's the next one? So then Mercury conjoined Pluto as well on the 30th of December 21 at 25 degrees Capricorn. So there's a lot of encounters there, between these planets at 25 degrees. Now, Venus is going to go direct at the end of January. It will go direct, I think, at 11 degrees Capricorn. It won't be the 25th degree. But Mercury going retrograde, which is, we just started now, will conjoin Pluto again on the 30th of January. And it will be around this degree as well. I didn't write it there, but it, you know, Pluto doesn't move that fast, so it'll be around 26, or you know. But Mercury will be stationing to go direct on the 4th of February at 24 Capricorn. Interesting, the same degree that it will be when it goes retrograde on the 29th of December. Yeah, so there's something about these degrees there. Then for the whole February, pretty much until, you know, early March, we're going to have Mars and Venus traveling together, because Venus will go direct, will still be pretty slow, you know, gaining speed. And so we will be traveling with Mars quite a lot, you know, quite together in Capricorn. And February 27th, 28th, plus early March, they're going to both be very, very close, traveling together, and together with Pluto as well, between the 24th and the 27th degree of Capricorn. So there's quite a lot there within this cycle of retrogradation of Venus and Mercury that's kind of tying in together with the 25th degree of Capricorn and Pluto there. So what else is going to be happening at, so someone is saying that 24 Capricorn is on my descendant. Yeah, so that is going to be a big one for you.
A lot of things happening. And I should say, not only 24 Capricorn, so I should say, if you have something around 24 degrees of any cardinal sign, so that's Aries, Cancer, Capricorn,
and Libra.
And which one am I? And Libra.
Yeah.
And maybe you could also look at 24 minus 9 degrees of any mutable signs, because that's a 8-fold aspect pattern. So maybe 9 degrees of any mutable signs, which are Virgo, Pisces, Sagittarius, and Gemini, and 24 degrees of the cardinal signs. If you have something there, it might be important, because these are the degrees that are getting activated so much.
This is going to be very personally tied into, you know, those deeper processes that you're already going through. Now, obviously, Mercury conjoining that Pluto, you know, on the 4th of February when it's, you know, turning direct or something. Yes, I mean, that could be having an extra insight into that long-lasting, deeper process that you're already going through. So Nikki has, you know, Pluto traveling through her descendant, and it's been going on, you know, for over a year. Obviously, there's not like bombastic, something's gonna, I love what Lise Green used to say, it's like nobody wakes up at 10 in the morning on a Saturday with Pluto on their ascendant. You know, there's like a whole process has been going on there. And that Mercury, you know, retrograde, because it's Mercury, because it's ideas, you know, that's how we always brainstorming with astrology. It might be a breakthrough. It might be some information that you're going to get from your process. So it's nice to know these dates, because then you can get, you know, a little clue. You can pay attention. You can keep your eyes peeled, and you can try to really, you know, look at what's happening around you. You know, what's happening. Maybe you might be very irritated with other people around. They'll be like, oh yeah, like my descendants being heavily activated. And also to think about this idea of cycles within cycles that I keep repeating here. It's like ripples, you know, in the ocean or something, when you throw a pebble in it, and you have all of these different dimensions to it. So Mercury obviously will be a passing mood, or a passing information, or a passing period there. And Pluto will be the larger, you know, ring there that's been going on for longer. And we'll be talking about this much more ingrained, deeper, you know, transformations that you're going through in relation to relationships, you know, partnerships. How do you do partnerships and so on? Obviously, you'd have to look into Saturn in your chart. What does Saturn do? Where is Saturn in your chart? And then would have further clues about these patterns that you're, you know, changing there with that Pluto transit. But going back to what we were saying here, so what else is at 25-ish, which is something that we thought was interesting about 2022, you know? So we have a full moon at 27 degrees Cancer, which is happening in 2 days. And that's, you know, again, full moon, it will activate, you know, it will be this very intense couple of days, 3 days or something, that things will be very revealed. It's like a spotlight of the full moon. So I think Kema was talking in the chat box that she's got Mars at 28 degrees Capricorn. Well, that full moon might be quite revealing about something that's longer, that's been going on for longer, or that's on a build up, because Pluto hasn't reached the 28 degree yet. But that full moon could be quite revealing. So it's interesting to have those dates on your calendar, not to be overly obsessive about, but to just pay attention, observe it, you know, see what that could be revealing to you.
Yeah, I would say, to try to participate with what's happening. Try not to control what's happening, but try to kind of be sensitive to what is this moment telling about myself, about what's happening to my life.
Yeah, and see how you can potentially be co-creation with it, which is, you know, what I really love about astrology. But, you know, I came across this idea, which I was going to mention before, but I'm just checking the time as we've got 5 minutes and a bit. But this idea that astrology, from all of the divinations, you know, techniques, astrology is very unique because we know where the planets are going to be. So it's not like you pick a tarot card and you pick a tarot card in the moment. And, you know, you throw your runes and it's in the moment. You know, you do I Ching and it's in that moment. You can't do I Ching for, you know, you can ask a question about August 2025, but astrology has an ephemeris that will be showing you, like, you know, pretty clear, like, where the planets are going to be in 2025. So there's something quite interesting and uncanny about this, you know, form of divination that really shows you beforehand. And it can be overwhelming, you know, and scary. So it's really important to keep that sense of how are we gonna do this together? How are we gonna use this in the best way possible, the most creative and constructive for myself? So we've got a full moon on the 16th of May 2022, obviously at 25 degrees of Scorpio, again that 25th degree. Saturn goes retrograde at 25 degrees on the 4th of June 22. Full moon 21 Capricorn, 13th of July. Pluto goes retrograde. Pluto goes direct at 26 degrees Capricorn, 8th of October, and Mars goes retrograde at 25 Gemini on the 30th of October, 2022. And then that Mercury that we mentioned on the other topic there, Mercury goes retrograde at 24 Capricorn on the 29th of December 22. So there's a lot of like 25, 27, 21 degrees there. So very interesting. So let's move to the next one. So here we've got a yard. We've got a chart of a yard that will be happening in November 2022. We thought was interesting as well to mention, together with this cycle of Venus and Mars that we're heavily going through now in the first 3 months, of this year, and seriously rethinking relationships and values and commitment and compromising versus saying no, and so on. Well, November, there is a potential revisitation of that from another perspective. Do you want to go on then, Alejo, say something about the yard for us?
Well, I was actually today, I was in a workshop by the faculty about 2022 with Dragana van der Mortel Illich, and she was saying something very interesting about Venus also, that this year, most of the year, she's going to be a Lucifer Venus. She's going to rise in the morning. So it's like a very, very powerful Venus. So I think it's emphasizing even more this idea of relationships. And here, by the end of the year, 11th November 2022, like what you were saying, this is a yod. So it means that Venus and Pluto are kind of working together. Every time I see Venus and Pluto, I think of Persephone when she goes to the underworld to become the queen of the underworld. So there is kind of a quest to go to your inside, to go deep within you, to see, well, how do you relate to power, perhaps, and how do you relate with other people, and what's inside, what's the basic, with Pluto, I think you are exposed to see what's hidden beneath whatever Pluto touches. So what's hidden beneath your choice of relationships, and what's hidden beneath your choices in general in life, because what's hidden beneath is your system of values. And this is how we started today, talking about your system of values. And with Venus sextiling Pluto, I think it's like at the end of all this process, kind of discovering, unveiling these hidden values, seeing what they are made of. Now, this is all quincunxing Mars in Gemini. And this aspect is like an uncomfortable aspect, something that it's a bit annoying. It's not, because it doesn't have the tension of a square. So it's not something that is forcing you to do something about it, but it's kind of annoying thing. Some people say it's like a shoe, like a stone on the shoe, like there's not much you can do. You shake it and then you keep walking and then it goes back, and then you shake it and then you keep walking and then it goes back. So Mars in Gemini forget about the houses here, of course, because this is a general chart. Mars in Gemini is about how we defend ourselves, how we assert ourselves. And in Gemini, it's a very intellectual, rational, detached way of asserting ourselves. So I think what's uncomfortable of this is that after all this year, we are going to know what our system of values are. We're going to realize what we think is precious and worth it. And we're going to have to start acting on it. And we might have to start acting on it in a rational, detached way. And it may not be so easy. Like if we think of Persephone as the queen of the death, I don't imagine her like a civilized, disciplined, like detached woman. I feel she was probably quite intense in the way she addressed her subjects. And I think that's the uncomfort that this Mars in Gemini is bringing. What are we going to do by the end of the year when we have realized, after all of these retrogradations and all of these processes of going inside and getting all of these gifts that this year promises, how are we going to act into the world? Will we be able to do it in a civilized, rational way that Mars in Gemini is asking, or not? I don't know. I think that's one of the questions I like to ask myself when I get to this point.
Yeah, very interesting. And it's also applying, isn't it? It's applying because Mars is retrograde there. So Mars is going backwards. So it's applying to the Venus there. And the Venus is coming to sextile that Pluto. I mean, I have a feeling because it's November there as well. It's like the action will be taken next year, you know? We are doing all of these thinking and all of this reviewing and all of this, you know, looking into the values and, you know, all of this stuff that we spoke about. By the end of the year, we'll have more clarity, but it will still be, you know, rethinking on how to put it into practice with that Mars retrograde, doesn't it? The Mars retrograde, the action taking, it will still be, you know, somehow in that inwards movement that we just spoke about, you know. And I think it was Emma or someone that said in the chat box, it's very interesting that we're going to end the year with Mars retrograde. And it is, you know, we start with Mars and, you know, with Venus going retrograde, that's the start of the year. And then we end the year with Mars retrograde. So it's almost like beginning of the year, values. How do we see that? How do we connect with it, etc., etc.? And then by the end of the year, it's like, how do we actually put in practice? You know, the Mercury retrograde doing this transition into earth signs, you know. I mean, next year it will be in earth signs. And so, you know, perhaps the action taking will be next year. I don't know. But there's a lot of work that we need to be doing there, you know, or that we will have the opportunity to be doing. So what to take with you from all of this, as in this last, you know, 25 degrees bit. So there's an emphasis on the degree that Pluto is traveling. And with that, you know, Pluto is the slowest planet and the slowest, the longest, you know, and the more ingrained, deeper, you know, process will be reflection. And, you know, Lise Green talks about Pluto as collective survival, the collective urge to survive. And so it does talk about, you know, some very deep survival, you know, issues there. So depth, death, purging, you know, all of these Plutonic topics, you know, will be very much in the forefront there, because all of these full moons or retrogradations will somehow be tying to Pluto because they're in the same degree as Pluto. So relationships as well, because we have that Venus, you know, really strongly doing this cycle with Pluto. And we saw Venus conjoin Pluto in January 2021. So it's been traveling with Pluto and conjoining Pluto, you know. I mean, obviously, Venus always meet Pluto, but because of the emphasis with all of the other planets as well, there's something that's pointing to that, you know, degree to us, and these idea of relationships, again, values that we spoke so much about. What else is there? And the dance between Venus and Mars as a, you know, learning boundaries and compromising. It's like a seesaw. It's like a walking on a tight rope, you know. It's like, how do we do that? You know, how do we do that? How do we say no? How do we say yes? How balanced that is, you know, how effective we are, you know, in that, in our lives, in our personal lives, and you know, and that projects into other areas as well, you know, and to each other and to our society and, you know, so on. But I think that's definitely something that would be under the spotlight with this, Pluto, Mars, Venus, and 25, 26 degrees emphasis. And then obviously, like Alejo says, look into your chart, where are those degrees? Because then you can make it more and more and more and more personal, in a way that this is going to come up for you. Find where they're going to be activating and what they're going to be activating. And so you can have a better idea of how to work with and how, what to do with it. So do we have another slide? Yeah.
Well, basically, it could be awesome to hear you all. If you want to share something, great things came on the chat box. But before we open up the floor, we just wanted to kind of make sure you have our information in case you want to contact us or you want to give us your ideas, because maybe some of you will not want to share ideas openly, or maybe we won't have time. So this is how you can reach us. And also, just to let you know some of the things that we're going to do in the future. So on the 19th of January, Fernanda is doing this webinar or workshop about the composite charts. Composite charts is when you merge two charts to get a third one. And I will be teaching for the Astrological Lodge of London. This is a whole day of lectures. I'm going to be talking about how to engage with planetary deities to find healing according to your chart, of course. This is 5 lectures actually, and it's you get access to all of the lectures. And also, which is one of the most important things I want to say today, about the future, about our events in the future, we want to let you know that we are going to start a podcast. The first episode is going to be on the 2nd of February. So if you had problems getting the email for the link today, please let us know so we can make sure that we send you the link for the podcast. And make sure you check your spam folder so you can be updated. You can be up to date. We also have your emails. We're going to see if we can manage to get the emails not into the spam folder somehow. Let's see if we can manage to fix that.
Yeah, we're very excited. I'm really excited about the podcast. We've got a bit of Gemini in our charts and a lot of Mercury, and I can't wait to be, talking about more about astrology with Alejo. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun.
So now let me stop sharing, I think maybe.
Yeah, sure.
If there was great things on the chat box.
There was a question from Rod about the nodes.
Yes.
That they were doing about the nodes.
Rod, if you want to unmute yourself and you can share your thoughts.
I was talking about a node. I remember now. Yeah, you were talking when Alejo was talking about the everything was swallowed by dragon things. I really like that idea. And it was very interesting because in my observation, when this kind of nodal axis, when the planet is in half part of node, but basically you don't need a lot of astrology study to think about it. When you look at the chart, the visualizing is imbalance. It's one kind of imbalance. So it is very interesting, this kind of imbalance, and it makes us feel like, because another way I like to see the node, because they are not, these 2 points are not exact planet. They are more like, conjunction point of 2 orbits. So there is no planet, there is no matter there. And it's a little bit more void or empty, or I should say imagination. So it's like an imaginary dragon. And when planet is swallowed by it, it's like you've been swallowed by an imaginary dragon. So maybe it's like a lot of things you maybe feel a little bit surreal, or you maybe feel like, is this real? Or you maybe feel like, we say, you maybe feel uncomfortable, or you maybe feel like you've been swallowed. But you look around, it's nothing happened. So it's like, what does that meaning? What does that feeling? So that's why I type that things in, because I feel that that is quite interesting until before the April, and these things could happen. This kind of feeling like image imagination things, and is this real? Is this going to happen? Another thing I want to really, I should shut my mouth very quickly, but
no, come on.
No, another thing I
just
want
for
to,
if somebody doesn't know, Rod Chang is a great astrologer. He has his own school, which is called Academy of Astrology UK.
Today is for you.
And by the way, I'm going to do a little advertisement now. We're going to start a small podcast also with Rod. But it's for people who don't know anything of astrology. So also you can follow it.
Sorry, I don't want to do that today, but it's a very interesting. Thank you, Alejo. But the one thing I want to add it in, because with the things you're talking about, because I was wondering something else, but when Fernanda and you mentioned about in September, there's 5 planets in retrograde, then I realized I get my kind of my answer. I answer myself. So the one thing I was focused is also the our friend Tanya. When we were in another talk, she mentioned about the 2022. Another strange thing is Mars. Mars is the big character in 2022. Mars moved into Gemini from end of August, and will stay there until end of March 2023. So that is like how many months? August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. Kind of 7 to 8 months. Yeah, wow. In Gemini. That's first things. Second things from October. That's what I focus, because you guys mentioned about outbounder. From end of October, no, second part of October to I think to March, Mars was out of bound. And I was kind of really worried about that with the whole world situation, Ukraine, Russia, Taiwan, China. I was wondering something going to happen during that time. Anyway, let me cut it short. But also in our personal life, that could be argument, because Mars in Gemini and out of bound is out of control. That is a little bit like a Twitter war, or we constantly argue to each other, and we feel like very sensitive and easy to get offended with the language or something during that time. I started from October. Then I suddenly think about what you're talking about around September. I say, that's why we do our inner work. Thank you so much for you too. It's like so informative and so interesting. And also, I think that's what we do in September when everything retrograde, because we have to think about ourselves. We have to think about what we stand for. What is our belief system, and what is our value, and what is our mindset. So from October, we were like a little bit busy, crazy, arguing all the time. Then we have we can find our feet and we know what's going to happen and what do we defend for. That's what little bit contributed in here.
Yes, thank you. Great.
Yeah, great. Yeah, for sure. I mean, or like Mars and Gemini will be really busy writing down our plans and changing our minds and being like, no, actually, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do something else. And interesting.
I was also, if somebody wants to unmute, please go ahead. I was reading here.
Thank you for being here. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Somebody was saying about Persephone. Persephone's fate was decided between her mom and her husband. Will we have a choice over our actions? It's an interesting question, I think. But I should say, to be honest, I don't fully agree with this idea because, well, I don't know if everyone knows the story. So basically, Persephone was kind of kidnapped by her uncle, but once in the underworld, my interpretation of the myth, and I hope nobody hates me for saying this, is that she chose to eat the grains of pomegranate. So I think
what I want to say.
Yes,
it was her choice to eat the pomegranate.
Yeah.
It was, sorry, I lost you, sorry.
She chose to eat pomegranate. She chose to stay, to return.
I agree.
That's
I think
exactly what,
deep
yeah,
down
exactly.
inside, she wanted to be queen of the underworld. You know, I'm thinking now, this is a very stupid comment, but maybe it makes sense. I'm thinking, I've been watching this TV series, Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, which is kind of a Persephone's journey, actually. If you're interested in the myth, you might like to see the series, because she starts like this naive teenage girl who doesn't really like the idea of, she likes the idea of being witch, but she doesn't like the idea of all that it may imply. And as she starts discovering all of her powers and her position in this witch world, she starts liking it more and more. And I think it has a little bit to do with this. Yes. Sorry, Barbara, I think you, sorry, Fernanda, yes.
Yeah, it was just very quick, actually, because Barbara's got her hand raised. I can see that too. I think it's a process of becoming a woman in your own right as well, isn't it? It's like the mother is overprotective. And so part of the, of her becoming a queen as well and reclaiming, her power as a woman, I think is a little bit embedded in that myth as well, with her own choice and etc. But yeah, very interesting. So Barbara, you got your hand raised. Do you want to mute yourself and...
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I'm not putting the video on because I'm sick today and I'm
okay.
not very presentable. Yeah, no, well, first, thank you. I loved the talk, love your energy. And and thanks, Rod, for your input as well. And you're talking about Persephone now, how I see it, if you don't mind me throwing my 2 cents. It's like there is an innocence that has to be lost in order to gain power, and to gain your true power, in order to come to contact and to own what is within. But there is still a cost. It is a choice. It is a step you have to take. But it's like you cannot be an adult with the same naivete of a child. You have to face reality. And that is and for me, and being in Capricorn, this retrograde Venus, it's really about getting in touch with the reality of things. So wherever this is happening in your chart, you better see things for what they are, because there is where your true power lies.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, really. Yeah.
Nice, interesting. Yes.
Be very serious, isn't it? It's a Saturn ruled sign.
Yeah,
take it very seriously.
It's not a kid's game anymore. Just grow up and lose your fantasies, lose your whatever your dreams were, and just face what it is in order to actually own your power.
I actually love what you're saying, Barbara, because as Rod mentioned about Mars and Mars going retrograde, I mean, Mars will be squaring Neptune quite a few times, from Gemini to that Neptune in Pisces. And obviously the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction in Pisces, and this dazzled by all of the possibilities, and, and this other side of the Capricorn bringing us down to reality and being like, no, it might not be exactly how you're seeing, see it again.
Yeah, that Jupiter in Pisces with Neptune, Venus then coming also close to it. It can feel very nice. It can feel very good, but at the same time, it might be too good to be true. And so that Venus in Capricorn is already just giving you the heads up to look forward to what's coming. With Venus in Pisces and Jupiter in Pisces and all that.
Yeah, I think there's also a sense. Sorry, Fernanda. Yes, go.
No, I wasn't good. I just said very good point. Go on.
With what Barbara is saying, I think there's also a sense of responsibility in this losing this naiveness. Like, be responsible for
definitely
this. Yeah. I think so too.
Which is very Capricorn again. Yeah, take responsibility. Ownership.
Yeah. Also, I'm looking forward to your podcast and to all your projects.
Thank you.
Yes, very good. Very excited. Very, very excited.
And now Susan is adding, be aware of being cynical about dreaming. I think it's
the other side of the coin.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a tightrope. It's always a tightrope, isn't it? Between the two extremes. I always like to think about astrology as this, like, we've got the worst, the best, and all the shades in between, and we never just one or the other, or there's always this like overlap on how we express these things. And yes, for sure, yes.
Life is what's happening in between the extremes. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also, I mean, I think there is kind of, I would say, trust your own process, as you go through this year and you see how this applies, because there might be times in which you may feel you don't have many dreams, and maybe it's a necessary step to get new dreams, like in the Oriental world, they like to say you need to empty before you can fill in your cup. So sometimes it's like, yeah, maybe we do have to do a little journey to the underworld to find this power. I'm thinking of another myth, the myth of Inanna. She had to go to the underworld. She had to be killed in order to be rebirthed. And we have these myths in many cultures, in many different ways, right? So it's an interesting thing how to kind of work with it. Yes.
And also look into your chart, because if you have 10 planets in Pisces and Saturn in Capricorn, then obviously most of your life you've been prioritizing the Piscean archetype and dreaming, and so the challenge is really to bring and own that Saturn in Capricorn. I always find that this is really interesting, very telling as well about our natal charts. It's like, if you're usually giving priority to Capricorn and being serious and responsive and cynical and etc., then maybe yes, this is your chance to dream a little bit more and try the other way, and embrace a little bit of a different way of doing things and perceiving reality. But if it really feels like, from what we were looking, this forecast of 2022, there's a lot of inner life. There is a lot of opportunities for you to really ask these questions, look within, so we can finally take some action, in 2023 or whenever. We haven't really looked into 2023, but it feels like 2022 is really a kind of a mind map, like creating a mind map and brainstorming into something, into potentials, into etc. Yeah, we've got another hand raised.
Svetlana.
Yes.
Hi everyone. Yes, I think maybe I mentioned it in the chat, but it's interesting also to see that we are starting the year with the retrograde Venus, and we are going to finish it with retrograde Mars. So here we have the female male energy, repetition, and maybe balance also, and also that we have few months that are without any retrogrades. I think it's now from February and March, April, and then we'll start the months with retrogrades. There will be like a couple of months, as you mentioned, September and on, where we have more planets in retrograde. But also it's interesting to see this 2-3 months for everyone, how they will be reflecting where there is no retrogrades at all. And that's only the thoughts. And thank you for setting up. It was really interesting. And yeah, I'm happy to share all this interesting, weird consequences for 2022.
No, thank you, Svetlana, for being here. And I think it's going to be interesting if we meet again, when we meet again in 2023.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do like first a recap. Okay, what did we say was going to be about 2022 and what happens?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That would be interesting for
did
sure.
Did the notes eat you up in the end, or did you survive?
Yes, exactly. Did we find any answers? We're just more confused with all the Pisces.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Very good.
All right. Okay. I don't know if there's anybody else want to add something else, or let's just quickly remind you all how you can reach us if you want to reach us.
And also we're available for consultations and also, we don't just do talks and teaching, we do a few other things too. And yeah.
Yes. So whatever you need, we're here for you. Thank you so much for being here. We will send you an email with the link so you can watch the recording somewhere if you want to see it again. And if you didn't get our email, please, here you have a way of contacting us. Let us know, because we know some people did not get the email. We apologize for that in advance. Not in advance, actually late now. We apologize for that. And well, let's make sure you're gonna get all of the other emails for the other things we're gonna do. So if you didn't get the email, please let us know, okay? And also we will be sending you like a small survey, very, very short. It would be great if you can answer, so we know exactly how to approach the podcast and all of the upcoming projects we have, depending on what you need, what you think is valuable for you. We were talking about value so much, and we want to know what is that you feel you might need or might be interested in. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And and please participate in the pod. I mean, we're gonna find ways of people participating in the podcast as well, or like sending their charts. We're gonna look into charts, isn't it? Like first, you know, we're thinking about doing an hour, you know, of a podcast, not too long, not too short, and in between, like we are, and you know, first 40 minutes, half an hour, we'll be talking about astrological things, etc. And then the second half, we'll look into charts. So whoever is interested in, you know, having their chart looked at, obviously we're not going to give the information live or anything like that, but we'll just talk about things and do a bit of an interpretation there in a moment. So yeah, we'll see how it goes, isn't it? It's like in a kind of an organic process of formation, but we're very excited. We're very excited
Yes.
about that. Yeah, it should be really fun. We've been looking into podcasts, and there's a lot of really good astrological podcasts, but I don't think we've found any like funny ones, or like we're like thinking about being and, you know, being a bit more humorous with it, and you know, serious and good astrology, but also like with, you know, yeah. So that's
all right.
an important message there. Yeah.
So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I hope this was of service to all of you, and that, you know, you have a wonderful 2022 journey.
Exactly. Blessings to all of you, and hopefully you're going to have a wonderful journey during this year.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. For us, it's an honor.
Yeah,
And
it's been amazing.
we're very
It's been really
grateful.
good.
Yes.
Yes. So yeah, that's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice
Thank you,
evening.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording.